It's recording. Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
You gotta be smarter than the thing.
Okay. So we will start this evening. I wish that we had more people here this evening, but that's, you can't bring people in, you can't drag them in. And I understand some people are just, right now, would rather stay home. So I did get a neat thing about that right there is Joe Sparks normally does our videotaping, and he actually sent me via an email that he can put that on YouTube.
Yeah, that's what he sent me this time.
So when you get on YouTube, then you can actually click on the link and you can watch the whole meeting via that. Now what I'd like to, I don't want to have just myself and a presenter here, which is what could possibly happen at some point, or maybe we don't even have any meetings. And I hope it doesn't get to that point. But we are going to officially start our meeting off. So what I would like to do is just bow in a word of prayer, and then followed by the prayer of the pledge. Father in heaven, I thank you for the people who have attended tonight. Lord, I ask that you be with the people that can't be here this evening. We just lift up our community. We lift up our nation to you, Lord. We ask that some of the things that are going on right now within our nation, Lord, that people would start putting differences aside, and that you would give guidance and direction to the president of our country. And Lord, that we would just have a good evening together tonight. And I ask for a special blessing over Mr. Wells this evening as he is our presenter. And I thank you for all these things, and we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Okay, as we always do, I'm going to turn the pulpit over to Kathy, and she will relay our information. Kathy, do you have our minutes at all from last month, or?
I have the minutes.
Oh, you have them? Okay. So let's bring up Nancy Fox first, and she will read our minutes, and then following her will be Kathy.
The meeting was opened by President Lonnie Beveridge with a prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. There was no secretary report. The treasurer's report was given by Kathy Kinley. We received a gift of $330 in memory of Betty Sansom. We presently have $9,292.70 in the checking account. We have received payment of 21 memberships and have a total of 42 members. There is a card available to be signed and sent to Dale Black. He is presently residing in Colonial Manor Nursing Home and can have no visitors. The Bama Committee is making plans for the Apple Fest, however the events will be modified. West Dingus requested information about the Richland Bank building, and it has been determined that the building will be given to Bama. Discussion is taking place about possibilities for the building's use. Dick Weller will be the guest speaker next month. He is a carver who specializes in birds. It was noted that the Sons of Thunder will be riding motorcycles through Butler around 11 a.m. on the 4th of July. There was also mention of the Love Our Heroes shop run by Tammy Oyster. It is a resale shop in Belleville with proceeds benefiting returning soldiers. Our speaker was Dee Weisenbarker. She began her talk by giving credit to God, who has been her help and strength. Born in Canton, Ohio, and living in various places, Dee left home at age 14, lived with neighbors, helped with child care, and served as a nanny. In 1955, she and her husband moved to Butler, where they raised their family. She always was looking for ways to serve the community, and after realizing that there were 60 widows in Butler, it was determined that a senior center would be opened. The adult center opened in 1997. Various individuals and organizations donated for the building and helped in its preparation. Bob Ream-Snyder was a very valuable helper, along with the Lions and Lioness clubs. The building that they purchased had been used for numerous purchases, including McCready's Buggy and farm implements, George's Furniture Store, and the post office. Meals, dominoes, and senior meetings have been a big part of the building use. Dee served for many years and made 75 meals each day beginning around 4:30 a.m. She took little credit, but shared her gratefulness for living in such a wonderful community of great people. And I thought that it was interesting in watching. She didn't know how many years she had served. she didn't have any idea. And I just thought, I mean, it was probably 30 plus, and no clue. And I just thought that, you know, she was just wonderful. So respectfully submitted. Any additions or corrections?
What did you have my name? I thought you said Dick Waller.
Nope. And I didn't even have my mask on. Don
Okay.
Wells?
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Oh, I do have Dick Weller. You're right. I will change that. And I knew it was Don Wells. Where did I get Dick Weller from?
Coming on this way for nothing.
Thank you.
My mother was a Weller.
Really?
Yeah, her mother was a Weller. Yeah.
I don't know where that
My
came from, because
great-grandmother.
I don't even know
My
anyone.
great-grandmother, I should
Dick
say.
Weller.
First of all, if you have any donations, there's the basket sitting right there.
We're not gonna pass.
We're not gonna pass it around. Okay, we ended June with $9,512.25 in the checking account. So we had some big bills this time. Ohio Edison doubled, but that's because they estimated it. And the bill that I have for June is $123.80, which is high, I think. Anyway, they estimated it probably because of the air conditioning. We also had some trouble with the air conditioning then. Lonnie had a birthday thing planned and had it in here and discovered that the place was
Oh, it
hot.
was over 80 degrees.
So he called Mark Temme, and Mark Temme came and repaired, and that bill was $263.53, which is a lot, but he came out immediately on Sunday. So he's always been good for us. So we are ending up, well, not ending up July, as of now, we have $9,094.88. And about the Apple Fest, this committee has no idea. We don't know what to do. You know, people keep coming up with ideas that maybe would work and maybe would work, and we're still not committed to. Everybody wants to have it, but you understand completely, right?
Let's fill everybody in on our closing Richland Bank account.
Oh, okay. Richland Bank quit on us, pulled out. So I've been investigating us moving everything to Mechanics in Belleville, simply because Mechanics is not a big conglomerate. It's more of a local bank, and it's got a very good history, and they're very cooperative. Ken and I moved our account, and I would like to move our account to Mechanics, simply because it's easier for me to deposit if I'm going there for my own stuff. So, but Richland Bank is giving the building to BAMA, Butler Area Merchants Association. It's just going to be September, because they didn't tell anybody they would close till September 15th or something like that. So it's going to be September before it's all finalized and that. And BAMA has some options. There are some people who inquired about leasing the building for a business. And since we are the Merchants Association, to lease it for a business would be wonderful for Butler. You know, a business that would come in, so we can be very, I don't know, careful about who we lease to or if we lease to, but it's going to take something to keep it going because we don't have a big income coming in for the Merchants Association, just whatever anybody donates. So that's what's happening there.
Okay, before I introduce our guest, which I think everybody already knows him, but I'm going to formally introduce him. Next month's meeting will be August 27th, I think. Yes, August 27th, and we will have with us Penny Bechtel. She will be speaking to us on North Liberty, and she had let me know over the phone that, don't quote me on this, and I'm going to find that out before I write my newsletter, but I think it was her grandmother that wrote a diary, kept a diary of some of the things that happened in North Liberty, and she kind of turned that into a book. So I thought, yeah, that would be really neat to hear the stories of, I love the old towns that are really no longer in existence anymore, you know, that at one point they were. So that's who we will have next month. So if you can come, we'd love to have you. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the podium here over to Mr. Dick Wells, and he will tell us a little bit about what he has brought this evening.
Is it all right if I pull my mask down?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, all right. Talk to you from here, and I'll try to turn up the volume a little bit so you can hear. Anybody can't hear, well, let me know. I have brought quite a few things here that I use in my wood carving collection and what have you, and I'd like to explain to you what they are, and then afterwards, if you want to look through them, you're welcome to. First of all, I'm basically a wood carver and a bird watcher, and I started watching birds when I was over in Grove City, Pennsylvania. Got interested in that and what have you, took that up, and then along came, I decided I was going to have a duck for my desk. And so I decided to make myself a duck, and so I did, and that showed that to people. It led to another thing. They showed me a better duck and what have you, and then it led to what I have today. So it just advanced rather rapidly. What I have here is Chip Chat Books, which is the National Wood Carving book. Anybody can become a member of the National Wood Carvers Association and get this thing. I think it's around $16.50 now for a year's subscription, which there's 6 issues. It comes every two months, and that has, most of it is reviews of the various wood carving shows that goes on in the country. So you'll see a wide range of carvings in here. From about anything you can think of, they try to make it out of wood. Also, this is an album, which I have some other pictures in here, which I have done. You're welcome to. This is the competition magazine, which people take pictures of the top bird carvings in the United States every year, and they publish them in a book. And there's about 6 different shows represented in this book. And I did enter in one a couple years ago, but I didn't win any first, so you're going to see me in there. But anyway, you're welcome to look through that. This is another book which I subscribed to for many years. It's Wildfowl Carving magazine, and it has illustrations in here that shows you how to do things, how to paint, and I get a lot of good information from that, how to make birds, and it's sort of it's a good book. Expensive, about $10 for a quarter, and you get 4 issues. But I have about 100 issues of that at home, so I've done it for a while. I used to be a member of the Johnny Appleseed Woodcarvers in Mansfield. They have sort of faded into the past due to old age. However, there are a group still meeting in Shelby on a weekly basis, carving at a church in Shelby. I stopped going because I didn't like to drive after dark, but however, they do recognize me and invited me to Thanksgiving dinner with them last November, which they held in Belleville. So I can see them. But anyways, the only show that I really go to now is the one up in Strongsville. It's from the Ohio Decoy Carvers and Collection, and they're ducks primarily, but they do have other birds, what they call rest of marsh competitions. It could be any kind of birds, hawks, owls, what have you. And it used to be every St. Patrick's Day, which is up in the Holiday Inn at Strongsville. Now it's been postponed. I think it's now going to be in September. But anyways, it's a really good show to go to, and that's where I go to and I get my wood. This is carvings, which I did as a young boy, around 8 to 12 years old, and Earl is a witness to that I made this chain because he was there growing up with me, and he saw this chain, so he knows. Other birds here I've done. Over here is miscellaneous carvings from a Johnny Appleseed club, which I have accumulated over time. There's a picture here of a person that was in the club, Walt Nichols. I think Walt is still living today, but if you look closely at some of the things that he did, it was fantastic. It was just, the details, it's just unbelievable. Over the years, even before even I left, in our last show up there, which was in 2010, Walt was still carving things and working with mine. He had Parkinson's disease, but every time he picked up that knife and started working on it, his hand was purely steady. Otherwise, it's like that.
Yeah.
But anyways, you have already a collection of carvings from two other charter members of the Johnny Appleseed Woodcarvers, Harley Ward and Tom Yance, Tom and Dottie Yance. Here you have some of the cutting tools which I use, different types of stones. Some of them have an 1/8" shaft, some of them have a 3/32 shaft. And one of the things I'll point out here that I get into texturing, where I make it look like feathers. This is one of the tools I use right here, that little stone. And then I have some other carving knives, with basic carving knives, which I have work with to rough out and shape the pieces of wood. And I have a scalpel, which comes in really handy, and it's sharp. And some of the other roughing, especially on ducks and stuff like this, where you have a lot of material to remove, where you use what they call a gouge. Abrasive files. And this is a motorized unit which I use. And right now I have it hooked up to run this one, which has a 1/8" shaft on it. But it runs up to 20,000 RPM. And I have a newer one, which runs up to 30,000 RPM, and it's an easily quick change unit. You can take your tools out, and I can put in a different collet here, and also run an 1/8" collet on it. And I use all the finer shaping with the power tools. And then finally, after it's all shaped and all the wood's roughed up, you have to remove the burr, you have to remove the whiskers, use a brass brush for that. And I have a collection of brushes which I use for painting. They're artist brushes, as you would use, and I use acrylic artist paints. And that's basic stuff I have. And the other thing which I do is wood burning. And all the birds here, if you look at them, you'll find the tail feathers and the wing feathers are fine. They're very organized and fine and very neatly done. And these are the pins I use, wood burning. And there's a cord attached to that. And also I have a rheostat on it, so I can get it how hot I want it. I can make just barely a charred line on it. I can burn it. I use it as light as possible. And I can burn, used to be able to burn up to 80 lines an inch, something like that. I guess I'm closer maybe to 60 an inch right now. But that is what I use. This one is a permanent way, which I use a lot. And this one is which comes with the box, and it is, you can change the tips on it and use different tips. And in the wood carving category today, there's also people now taking a wooden board and making an art picture of something on it by burning different shades of burn, deep, dark, light, what have you. And that's, you'll see some of those examples in the Chip Chats magazine. Okay. That's the basic tools I use and what's up here. The other question comes, what do you use for wood? This is basswood, which is native around here. It grows around here. I live down in Danville area, and I had a lot of basswood on my property, and it gets pretty good size. I had one tree that was about 30 inches, and it fell over, but it was all rotted out on the inside. But on the exterior of it, there was about 4 inches of really good hard carving wood, which I have some of that in my garage today. But that's basswood. You can pick it up and lift it. And what I'm using now on birds is a wood called tupelo. And it's a tropical wood, like comes from the south, and it's very light. It's light like balsa, but it's very tough. And if you try to cut it with any ordinary pocket knife, it'll just sort of make a dent in the wood. But if you use something like a razor edge on it, you'll be able to cut the chips off of it. But it grinds better. Using the grinding tools, it grinds much better. And whenever I'm making birds out of this tupelo, I have a workbench ventilator, which I turn on and it draws the dust into that. Otherwise, it's very, very dusty. And one other thing which I use a lot when I get the birds down, finished, carved, pretty much ready almost to wood burn, I go over with sanding papers, and I use the nail file type of sander on a lot of them.
Is that Wilma's? Is that Wilma's?
No. No, this is a Revlon. It's Revlon, and one thing I like about them, you can cut them with a pair of scissors and get whatever shape you want to get into the corners.
Oh.
It's very nice. I use a lot of those. So. This is just a couple samples I have where you take a piece of wood and you shape it, and that one's wood burnt. And this one is ground. So you can see how I make the feathers. I've had a lot of people ask me how I glue all those feathers on there. Well, they're not, they're solid. Okay, we'll get back to my birds. Bird carving is to me, is interesting viewing birds. And like I say, I never really got serious about it. I was in Grove City and probably in my 40s. And then I got buy a good book. This is a very good book, has excellent pictures in here regarding all kinds of birds. And I have one on the table here. Probably nobody knows what that is. This one right here. That one's called an ovenbird. And it's in the book. It's in the book right there, an ovenbird. And I've never seen them out in the wild. The only two I've seen over in Grove City, one of them flew into my back porch door, which was glass, flew into it, killed itself. And when I was down in Danville, I have a workshop with a lot of glass doors in it and what have you. And one flew in and killed itself down there. That's the only ones I've ever seen. But it says that it's a North American warbler, the ovenbird, its distinct song and appearance, as well as a characteristic confidential walk and all captivating. The ovenbird happened to stop by my water feature and took a bath. That's what it looks like when it comes out of the bath. First thing, that's the only thing I've ever heard about an ovenbird in a magazine. Because I took bird magazines, and I currently take Birds of Bloom, and that's what it came out of. But anyways, to get into making a bird, a lot of ideas I come up in my mind. I see them, like I saw the ovenbird, I had to make the ovenbird. So I had it right there. I can measure it all out and everything, and colors and all that, and that's quite helpful. Then I take and used to, you can get the patterns. There's a pattern book over here with in wood carving. There's wood carving catalog there. You can get about anything you want in wood carving, whatever you want to make. This happens to be by a gal who has sketches and everything, and they become patterns. Work with them. And all the bird magazines and pictures I ever could accumulate, I have those in files at home by bird. So if I want to go to that, I use them for reference in painting, and I also use them for reference, of course, in making the pattern itself. I used to follow the patterns in those books, but I find a lot of those are a lot fatter or bigger than what they should be. And one thing about the bird book, it tells you in there how long the birds are. So I find that from measuring what flew into my windows and everything down there, that like it's a cardinal is 8.5 to 9.5 inches long. I find that they're on the short side, around 8.5 inches. So you'll find that pretty close to that, 8.5 inches, this cardinal. The other thing, when it comes to pattern, I will take, and this is probably out of this book, this is a grosbeak, a evening grosbeak, and they're yellow and black. But I would take that picture out of here and blow it up to that size, and that becomes my pattern. And one thing I've discovered regarding songbirds is that they're basically round. So now I have the depth of it, and I have the diameter of the bird, and I can go from that and then develop the bird off of that. So that's how practically all you see birds here you see are developed that way.
Now, do you carve the legs and feet too?
No. In the wood carving supplies, there are feet and legs that were available. You could buy them. However, that company has gone out of business, and there are still, I can get some feet, but the legs, they were made out of pewter, and they were very brittle, and they were also easy to break. So instead of using pewter anymore, I make now basically all my birds out of copper wire. And don't look at them too closely because they don't have the detail what the original legs had, but from a distance they look pretty good. And they're strong. And if I get into a big bird, like something like this, I use threaded rods. So they'll support the weight as well as, and then I can sometimes build the feet around the rods. The feet will be carved. Now this one, they're carved out of wood and matched to match the mount. This same here, that's made out of copper wire with a wood putty on it for elbows. There it goes.
How long does it take you to do the feet and the legs?
What?
How long does it take you?
To do the feet and the
legs.
Oh, well, the feet I buy. So
But
far,
even,
on the small
you know,
feet,
just putting it all together.
altogether, songbirds, like I say, run 20 to 40 hours depending upon the size. Ducks would run maybe 60 hours to 100, maybe 120 hours for something like a wood duck.
But you're talking about the total piece. You're talking about from start to finish the total piece.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But then also, I get into a lot of research sometimes on a subject made. One I just completed a couple years ago was a grouse, a normal grouse around here. And that one took me about 170 hours to do the first one. I actually did two of them. I sold the first one for $1,200, and it was a request to begin with. And then I made one for my son off of that.
Dick, those hours you're telling us, is that including painting them as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's total. Okay.
Yeah. That's one other thing. Basically, the carving and the wood burning, I picked that up on my own. I've done carving before, so that was no big deal. But the wood burning, that's something else. The texturing, I've developed that myself. And but painting, I didn't know how to do. I started out with oil paints, and unfortunately, I can't use oil paints on these type of birds. This is good in here. You can see this, the texture on it. The texture on it. If you use oil paints, you fill up that texture so it looks, now I got a smooth bird. I don't want a smooth bird. I want it to look like feathers. And in order to do that, I grind these feathers with that little stone. And then the other feathers here are done with the wood burning.
I want to ask you a question about
Sure.
when you were a boy and you did this carving. Did you just start doing that? Was there someone in your family who carved, or that you observed? What brought all of that about?
At that point in my life, I think I was starting to put together model airplanes. It was the Second World War and the fighter type model airplanes. Put that together. It was stick with the glue, you know, and I put tissue paper around them. And I was probably driving my father nuts during the winter months. And we took the Farm Journal magazine. And in the Farm Journal magazine, it gave it details on how to make a chain out of wood. He gave, and I had some, so at that point I had a set of X-Acto knives.
Huh.
You ever see those with
Yeah.
little blades in them, have you? Which was, and he got that for me for Christmas, I think it was. So he challenged me to make a chain. And so I spent a lot of hours down in the basement working to make that change, but it told you in there step by step how to do it. And from that
Discovered
point
you
on,
could do it.
I went on to make things in a box.
And how old did you say you were when you made that chain?
How's that?
How old did you say you were? About 8, 9?
Well,
Or 12.
I was someplace in that area,
Okay.
8 or 9, 10, somewhere in there.
What did your dad say when you,
Well, he was quite pleased. He was a machinist and for a high brass company and everything. He's sort of done a lot of work with his hands. And he was quite impressed. And then I got into other things. Wanted to make a chess set, the Boy Scouts. Started that, that's what's left. That totem pole there and some stuff got left. But someplace down along the line, I saw Werther's collection.
Yes.
Probably Loudonville Fair, you know, and I remember standing for over an hour in line trying to get a pair of those pliers, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which I finally gave up on it. But I saw he was doing a thing with a little frame with the balls in them, and only he went much further than that. He had balls inside of balls, and not a rectangular thing. There was a lattice work. And it was fantastic. So I worked with that, made small ones, big ones, and what have you. Maybe even some really smaller ones than that, which I don't have anymore. But some of my stuff got lost over the years as I grew up and left home. My sister moved in with her kids, and I think they got into it. Someone's lost some of it, but
So no formal training to speak of. You
well, I did in painting. I took classes in painting.
Okay, in painting, but not.
And acrylic painting is much different than oil painting. Oil painting, you just dabble there, mix it up, get a little whatever color you want, you know, and paint it, and that's it. However, in acrylics painting, you can't do that because you're dealing with the water and the paint, and I got to be using the texture of milk, probably 2% milk, you know, to paint so I don't fill up the grooves. And in doing so, this, for example, is the would be burnt umber color, and you can see you start down here, first coat, second coat, third coat, fourth coat, fifth coat, sometimes 6 or 7 coats to get the degree of color you want in the picture. So painting with acrylics tends to be a layering technique. And then you tend to blend by pulling it into the color that you already have. You start with a darker color, then add the lighter colors.
I wanted to ask you, when you said that you entered in a contest, but you didn't win, did you take your own pictures of your birds to enter into the contest, or did you take the actual bird there?
The actual bird.
Actual bird.
I'll give you a good example. The guy that I took painting lessons from, I was in a wood carving club over in Canfield, and they got Bob Hawkins from Cincinnati to come up for a weekend and teach us how to paint a bird. We first started off with a redhead duck, which is fairly easy. And then we went to a green-winged teal, which is this. Went to a green-winged teal with that and paint that. And we're going to a third one, which was a merganser, a hen merganser for the blending of colors and what have you. But they didn't get enough people to conduct the show. Because I don't know what they paid it, but I know it's several $100 up there to do that, but he did it for a weekend. Well, from Cincinnati. And so I went down to his place in Cincinnati and spent the weekend down there and learned how to paint that duck. And that's the only instruction I've had regarding the painting. And after I did it for a while, then I got really, I thought fairly good at it, and I could then do my own painting with. Before that, I was trying to get other people to do my painting for me. But I entered my first show in 1993, and I thought this was the best carving I ever had done. It was very Steve, if you look at it, all the fine verniculation on this and what have you. And this was made off of a mounted hooded Merganser that a guy had in the plant I worked at. He loaned it to me, and I made it off of that. But I had pictures showing the head all fanned out like this. Normally they're not. They're all in tighter. But anyways, I entered this in competition. I only got an honorable mention on it. And I asked the guy who was the guy who taught us how to paint, which he didn't know it was mine. He said he didn't like the head. That's why I got honorable mention. However, I did enter 2 ducks. I entered also the wood duck, which is probably one of the more painting challenges out there, the biggest one. I got first place. First place with my wood duck. And the wood duck is quite a challenge because you never know quite when you're finished. You're dealing with iridescent paint, and I mean, if you check a duck or something, when it changes direction or it gets a different reflection of light, the color's on it change. So therefore, you're dealing with some purples, greens, blues, and different shades of blues. Trying to do that.
So you entered the wood duck the same show and got first place, and the other one you got an honorable mention.
Right. I thought this was the best duck. But he didn't like the head, which really irritates me. Because, I mean, all that trouble painting a thing and everything, and he didn't like a head. I never touched it. I'd never go back and touch it. That's been a long time ago. This is one I just finished. That is a Carolina Red, and that's South Carolina's bird, by the way, and mounted on a mushroom, which I made that. And last year, I made Wilma a red-breasted nuthatch and entered that in the competition up at Belleville, in the wood carving competition, which they don't have much enter. There's about two people entered, and I did get first place this year in that, and also went on to get best of show in the fine arts category. And all the paintings, over all the paintings and everything else, which, okay, that's good.
It's really cute on that pine cup.
Yeah.
That's adorable.
So this was another one which I just finished last winter. My son, he's a hunter and everything, and didn't have a bobwhite quail. So this is another one which about every angle you look at, you're looking at different colors.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
And that's recently. Oh, this is also the Blue Jay. I also entered the Blue Jay in the same competition at Belleville, and they like that one better. I got the ladies, they're lady judges. Oh, he's cute. Yeah, they have a fair this year. I'm going to enter this one.
You would have thought since it was in Belleville, the Blue Jay would have won, huh?
Yeah.
They forgot.
They forgot.
Now the peanuts are a challenge. Those are all carved.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yeah.
There's several of them in there that are real, but everything else is carved.
Huh. Do they pronounce that woodpecker pileated?
Pileated.
Pileated.
Pileated. Pileated, or you can call it whatever you like, but pileated woodpecker.
You didn't carve the wood on that, did you? Of the tree?
No.
That's that.
That's one of the things that happens. You see birds you like. You see this one. We had a green ash in our backyard, and a big limb broke off of it. So in cutting up that green ash tree, I saw this piece, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. So I had it around for about a couple years. Finally got around to making the woodpecker and
Yeah, that's really
the
cool.
young one up there. Another bird here that is one of my favorites. I don't know where you've seen those around here. But that's what they call an orchard oriole. And one year, in fact, a couple years in a row down at Danville here, back in the 2000, somewhere in that area, we had orchard orioles and Baltimore orioles in a bunch of them. They were standing in line at the hummingbird feeder trying to get something to eat. And we put an orange out there, they'd be in that too. But the orchard oriole is smaller, but it sings like the Baltimore oriole. If you hear one sing it, you can't tell which one it is. And the females are basically the same, almost the same color as the Baltimore oriole female, but they're smaller. But I could sit on my dining room area there and watch those birds out there feeding and watch them feed. They're standing in line. I got pictures of them. They're standing in line there to get into the feeder. So another interesting bird, you know what that is? That's a pipe-billed grebe. And if you're around these ponds in the springtime, you'll see those little devils out there in the water playing through. But they dive down and get fish. And I have a picture at home in collection of this little duck or bird trying to swallow like a 5 or 6 inch bluegill. It's amazing. It's amazing. See this one? You know what that is? That's what they call a brown creeper. Same way I can sit in my dining room at home reading the paper and